gotcha. What style is that? Don't think.
You are now listening to the Bishop Chronicles. Bishop Chronicles.
You've lots to learn. Right with me. It's my own secret technique.
Peace to the planet Earth. You know what it is. Adisa Banjoko, live and direct in the building, repping that West Side. This is Pharcyde TV. You are listening to CydeLife Radio. This is Bishop Chronicles. And who the fuck do you think I am? I'm the Bishop, damn it. It's my show, dude. Thank you for tuning in. You know what I'm saying? Appreciate you. I have a special guest who's like a longtime friend. And so this gets weird. And the reason it gets weird is because there's things that I know when I look at him and he knows when he looks at me, and we're like, all kind of stuff is going on. But I have Dr. Peter Goldman from sfgoldman.com on. He is a lot of things to a lot of different people. For me, he's been my doctor for 10 years now almost, right? Yeah. You know, and we connect in martial arts. He's a Kyokushin black belt from way back, New York, repping hard, jiu-jitsu black belt, and just kind of an amazing human being. So Dr. Pete, welcome to Bishop Chronicles. Thank you for being on the show. It's been like, you were on like the first Bishop Chronicles, I think. Weren't you on the first one?
I was, and I was going to ask if cursing was allowed, but I guess that got answered already.
We can curse.
And again, so thanks for having me on. I love the Bishop Chronicles, and yes, I am Dr. Pete Goldman, and I'm happy to talk about all the topics that Adisa brought up so far, and even topics he didn't bring up so far.
Yeah, so it's funny because I always wrestle with the Pete that I know and the Pete that I want the world to know. So let's start at the beginning. Dr. Pete, you do what's known as the zone technique and zone healing, and you work with so many different kinds of athletes. Can you just kind of, I hate to do the name drop thing, but I just want people to understand how the demand for what you have is and what it is.
Well, let's start with this. So the zone technique is a type of healing that I do, and people come to me from all over the world for all kinds of things. So a person might come to me because they were told they need surgery on their neck because they have an MRI. And based on what the discs are showing, the disc so-called problem would make them need neck surgery and or low back surgery if they have a disc problem in their low back. Or maybe someone is having gallbladder attacks every few weeks, and they were told by someone that they probably need their gallbladder removed in the not too distant future. Or maybe someone is always getting bloated when they eat and they don't know why their digestion is so bad. So maybe they're like on a dairy-free and or gluten-free diet. Or maybe someone has panic attacks or whatever it is. But all those things are due to an imbalance in the body. And I have a way to determine what's not balanced in the body and then balance the body. That comes under the heading of the zone technique. The way it works specifically on a physical level is it divides the body up into 6 systems. And I'll go through it briefly here, but if people want more info, like you mentioned, SF, like San Francisco, Goldman, like my last name.com, explains it more in depth. But with that said, you have your glandular system, that's all your glands. Mm-hmm. You have your eliminative system, it's everything that eliminates your toxins. Mm-hmm. You have it's like sinuses, lungs, kidneys, intestines, bladder. You have your nervous system, you have your digestive system, which is everything that digests and assimilates your food. You have your muscle system, and you have your circulatory system. Every single cell in your body is in one of those 6 systems. So whatever could be wrong, for lack of a better word, with anyone, it's due to an imbalance in one or more of those 6 systems. So whether it's the panic attacks or the high blood pressure or bloating or disc problem or whatever, it's due to an imbalance in the body. And I have a way to check the body, see what's not balanced, and in a few minutes, reset the body. And, people fly into me from all over the world. I would say not 2 weeks goes by where someone's not flying in from some other part of the world when they've tried acupuncture, medicine, chiropractic, etc., and they're still sick and they have problems, and they fly in and they get healed. And as a matter of fact, you met one because just coincidentally, like we were hanging out last week, and I had this guy he owns a jiu-jitsu school in Malaysia, and he was told by, I think he said 4, he told us both 3 or 4 surgeons. They looked at his MRI and they said, hey, you need neck surgery. They were going to fuse his C1, C2, and C3, I believe. and said that he can never do jiu-jitsu again, but he owns a damn academy. How's he not do jiu-jitsu?
Right.
And he flew in, and of course his neck is fine, and he's out there winning tournaments. So,
and let me just tell you, it's funny. I don't want to be too strange, but I'm going to just show you, like, sometimes the universe will really align you with certain people no matter what you think you're trying to do with your life. So earlier in the week, I went to Little Plern. Is that how you say it? It's a Thai restaurant on Shattuck, and I devour food there often. And I was there, and it's been raining a lot, and this huge rainstorm came out of nowhere. And when I went to the restroom, I was going back to my table, and I saw this guy. And we just kind of glanced at each other, nothing, whatever. But, jiu-jitsu guys or martial arts guys, period, tend to be a little bit more aware, like they study humans a little closer. And as the guy was going out, he finished his meal because it was a huge downpour. And then as soon as it lightened up, he was walking out with his girl. And I glanced at him and I saw that he had some albino preto gi pants on. That's a gi company, a jiu-jitsu kimono company. And I almost, sometimes, like when you do jiu-jitsu and you see somebody else that does it, or any martial art, you always want to ask him something. But he was going out the door, and I was on the phone with a friend, and I was like, I told her, I said, I shouldn't just interrupt this random dude right now. Just let him go. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody who does jiu-jitsu isn't your friend, Adisa. Get on with your day. You know what I'm saying? So then I went. 2 days later, Pete's like, yo, where you at right now? I'm like, oh, I'm over here on university. He's like, I'm going to come through. I'm with my boy right now. Pulls up with that guy in the car. And we looked at each other, and we knew when he pulled up, we were like, you're the dude from the other day. And you know what I'm saying? It was just amazing. But I really like that. I love to see just like the global spread of all martial arts, but of course, jiu-jitsu. And it's funny how the universe works like that to keep you connected to people that you may think you don't, and then we had an amazing lunch and hung out and, all of that. So, for those that don't know, the zone technique is not like an Eastern medicine thing. And I think that's one of the bigger misconceptions about it. But this is American medicine.
Well, I put it like this. The original founder was Dr. Thurman Fleet. And if anyone's interested, go to Dr. Thurman, THURMANFLEET.com, drthurmanfleet.com, all one word. And he's, you'll read it, but he was one of the greatest healers of the last 1,000 years, as far as my research shows. And he invented zone therapy in 1931. I've had many influences. 4 of my mentors were direct students of his. These are guys who were teaching me. I spent probably 500 hours total with these 4 guys 25 years ago. They were like in their 80s back then, some of them teaching me what I learned about healing. And of course, they had a huge influence on me. At the same time, I've had like my karate master, Soshio Shigeru Oyama, Kyokushin legend, best student of Masayama ever. And I was with him 2 hours a day, 6 days a week for years, and traveled around the world fighting for him. And, I'm a student of metaphysics for a long time, and whether it's Nisargadatta or Vivekananda or Gurdjieff or whatever, I've had many, 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 many influences in healing, metaphysics, etc., martial arts, and I kind of put it all together and came up with a zone technique. So Dr. Fleet invented zone therapy in 1931. I kind of have my own version of it, which I call zone technique. And it's not Western or Eastern because that's just a polarity. This transcends polarity. It's just the most effective healing on the planet. And if someone can show me a more effective one, I'll start doing it. So
let's talk about some of the, I'm going to start with jiu-jitsu people, but like there's a lot of different athletes, BJ Penn, shout out to BJ, old school friend of mine from way back in the Ralph Gracie days. Higan Machado, who I'm a fan of, right? Rickson Gracie.
Crone Gracie.
Jake
Shields,
right?
Gilbert Melendez. Basically, who's who of BJJ and MMA guys are my patients. And the list is,
it's extensive, man. It's extensive. Now, because I don't really follow mainstream American sports, forgive me, planet. Who are some? I know you've got some hockey players, some football players.
I've taken care of many pro athletes from NHL, NFL, et cetera. But just to mention a few things that come to mind.
Yeah.
Justin Tuck was one of the best players in the NFL for a long time. But when he was on the Raiders, he came to me and he's like, hey, I get stingers. And for those of you who don't know what that is, when you're a football player and you like bang your helmet on someone, you get like, if your neck is misaligned, the nerves in your neck get compressed. And then you get like a shock down your arm, which is called a stinger. And he's like, I got stingers a lot. I go, well, Justin, everyone calls him Tuck, but I call him Justin. I'm like, hey, Justin, how often you get stingers? She's like, every game and every practice. I'm like, all right, well, I'll work on you this season and you'll have 0. And he was real religious about it. He came in every week. I saw him every week throughout the season. And at the end of the season, when he was packing up, the Raiders were done for that season. I go, hey, let me ask a question. Justin, how many stingers did you get this year? He goes, 0. That's one. Yeah. And another one comes to mind is Deion Jordan, who's, anyone who doesn't know who he is could look him up, but he's one of the better players in the NFL at the moment. I've helped him quite a bit with a lot of stuff. Yeah. So that's just off the top of my head, but I've taken care of a lot of
no, there's a lot of people. And so, what I want to get through to people and kind of check in on is like me, myself, I didn't know that I needed it until I was actually injured. You know what I'm saying? Like I had a really bad pinch in my back that actually came not even from jujitsu. It just came from like moving incorrectly. You know what I mean? Too long. And then after that, I started coming to you regularly and getting different things fixed. But I mean, like, when should someone come to you?
Here's the thing. Is a multi-part answer. I just want to add to that list. BJ Penn, you mentioned. I met BJ Penn in 2004. When I met BJ Penn, he had a severe neck problem. I remember asking him how often his neck hurt. He said 24/7. His neck just hurt all the time. He was told to retire and or get neck surgery in 2004. He was already the world welterweight champ. And I worked on him 6 times, and in 6 visits, he was 100% perfect. And, now it's 2019. That was 2004.
Yeah.
And BJ Penn has had his ups and downs in his career, but you never heard about his neck again.
That's true.
And I'm still very close friends with him and take care of him whenever I see him. When should someone come and how often should they come?
Yeah.
Well, let's put it like this. On one hand, when someone comes to me and they have a problem, like they, hey, Dr. Pete, my digestion is horrible, or they say, they tell me their nervous system is shot, or their immune system is weak, or they have an autoimmune condition, or they have a blood pressure problem, or whatever. I tell people, you come to me weekly until you're healed. Now, how do we know you're healed? Well, if you have high blood pressure and then you come to me for 2 months and you don't have it anymore, you have normal blood pressure,
right? I
would say that's healed. Or if you tell me, hey, Dr. Pete, and you tell me you've had migraine headaches 7 days a week for 10 years and nothing you've tried worked. You tried acupuncture, chiropractic, medicine, et cetera, homeopathy, naturopathy, and you still have headaches 7 days a week. And I say, well, come weekly till you're healed. And you come weekly for a month and a half and your head feels perfect 24/7. Well, obviously you're better.
Right.
And of course, objectively, I will check your zones the way I do it, and I will make sure your body's balanced. So when I say your body's balanced and you feel perfect head to toe, you're better. At that point, I just say come in when you feel like it for a tune-up. That could be once a month for what you might call maintenance. Right. It could be twice a month. It could be once a week. It could be once every 3 months. I leave that up to you. But when a patient comes in with a problem, I say come weekly. It could be once a week or twice a week, but come weekly until you're healed.
Right. Now, I hate to digress from this because it's such a big deal, this issue around health. And I want to encourage everyone, if you come visit the Bay, if you're not from here, but if you live in the Bay, if you're anywhere between like Sacramento and Salinas and you do sports or you're trying to be healed from something, you need to go to sfgoldman.com for real. Because unless I need to be cut open, I always go to Dr. Pete. Unless I need to be cut open, I call him first. Like I don't call Kaiser, you know what I'm saying? And it's because of what I've experienced. So, that's not like an infomercial. I'm telling you about like my real life. But I got to cut left because I got to talk to you about martial arts, man. So, I think a lot of times when people hear about karate in America, there's like a big wide spectrum of what that means. And, I think all of us, anybody has seen karate really work and then seen someone who was supposed to be a black belt expert in karate get demolished by someone who either doesn't train or doesn't train that much. And that can happen to anybody in any martial art. But you training Kyokushin, and I want you to kind of differentiate Kyokushin from a lot of other styles of karate, just so the audience is clear. And then I want to learn about how you started and what your training was
So
like.
a couple things. So number one, I know that people do martial arts for different reasons, and I'm not interested in judging anyone's reasons. So let's say someone's like, I do martial arts to make friends or get in shape or have a place to go every day, or it makes me happy. I mean, that's cool. Like, that's great. So I actually have nothing to say about that. The only problem is when you do martial arts for actual practical self-defense and then you can't defend yourself. So many karates in this country and probably the world has been watered down so much and is taught by so many unqualified people. Things like karate get a bad name. But Kyokushin karate, I mean, damn, Masoyama was the founder. You can look him up. Masoyama, one of the greatest martial artists, I mean, ever that I'm historically. He was a 4th degree in judo. In fact, the famous Kimura who beat Elio Gracie had a famous quote in the dojo. He used to always say, man, no one's going to beat Oyama in judo. So Kimura used to say about Oyama in judo, no one's going to beat Oyama. And then Oyama's like, this judo's cool. And he was 4th degree. And he was really good in the ground too, real good in the ground, like ground judo. He's like, you know what? I like striking better. And then he was with Shotokan and Gojo-Ryu, but he's like, I could do better. He made his own style, Kyokushin. He said that there is no proof without fighting. That's a famous Masoyama quote. There's no proof without fighting. So he was all about fighting. And a lot of people don't know this, but I think it was in 1962, Thailand challenged, it was a long story, but I'm abridging it, but Thailand challenged Kyokushin, and they said, look, we'll have 3 Lumpini Stadium champs, which is like high-level stuff in Thailand, the 3-weight classes. You send 3 Kyokushin guys. We'll fight in Thailand with Thai rules, elbows to the face, total Thai boxing rules, Muay Thai rules. And Masoyama trained 3 guys, sent them over there. And it was like, Kyokushin versus Muay Thai, and Kyokushin won 2 out of 3 by KO. So I'm not saying Kyokushin's better or worse than Muay Thai, but it's obviously
everybody knows that Muay Thai is savage.
Right, right. So that's the first thing to realize about Muay Thai. I mean, about Kyokushin, just the effectiveness. And you asked like how I got into it. So I grew up in Brooklyn when it was not safe. I mean, just walking home from school.
Is Brooklyn safe now?
Most parts are completely safe in Brooklyn. I could name some neighborhoods if you want some geography that I still wouldn't walk in now. But when I was a kid, there are some neighborhoods that were treacherously dangerous that are now super safe and wealthy. But anyway, the point is this: Brooklyn was a real checkerboard neighborhood when I was a kid, meaning you could be on a block with very wealthy people and a fairly safe block, and you could walk like a block over and there were like bullets flying for real.
And you were in Bed-Stuy?
No, I grew up across the street from the Brooklyn Bridge, which now is like as nice a neighborhood as in the country. But when I was a kid, my block was okay, but across the street were bullets flying for real. And walking to my school, which was like a 12-minute walk or something, I mean, like just getting home without getting attacked was a
feat in itself.
Yeah, it was a feat in itself because my school was in downtown Brooklyn, and if you've seen, if you ever saw, She's Gotta Have It, Spike Lee's first movie, it was just filmed like on my block in my neighborhood. That's where I grew up. And Do the Right Thing was also filmed right around where I grew up. But anyway, just not safe. So I just took up Kyokushin just to defend myself. So that's how I started.
And what year was that?
1985.
And so who did you study under and what was the training like?
I studied under Soshu Shigeru Oyama, who Masoyama said himself was his greatest student ever. That's out of Masoyama's mouth. Anyone who knows Kyokushin knows that he's a legend. And
it's like Hickson's Hickson. If you're
on the street in his prime, I would take him against anybody. I mean, but anyway, I don't want to start arguing with people. He was great at judo, great at boxing, Kyokushin. I mean, incredible. But anyway, just being with him taught me so much about life, about fighting, about martial arts, about healing. I mean, it's great.
What was the training like?
Now, it's funny you mention that because I've done, I have a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I've also, I was curious about Krav Maga, so I tried Krav Maga for a few months at one point. I've, like Gleason's boxing gym, one of the most renowned gyms in the country, was a block from my house in Brooklyn. Right. I used to box there. I've done workouts with some high level stuff. And the kind of workouts we did were just like insane. In fact, I remember we used to actually, our fighting team, which was just only 4 of us on it, we were like kind of the elite fighting team for our dojo. We used to go to Gleason's and have our, put through our workout. And the owner of Gleason's, who was like used to watching like Mark Breland and Mike Tyson, that. He said, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm just quoting him. He's like, I don't think any of our boxers could get through this workout. He told us that. So the training was
like give our listeners an example. What do you see in your head?
We'll put it this way. Not only were you doing like insane amounts of bag work and pad work, but the sparring was just like, you just look to the left and right. People were just getting knocked out cold in every class. Like I just looked to the right and left and just like, oh, that guy just got knocked out. It was hardcore, full contact fighting, and you were trying to knock each other out in the Kyokushin rules. I mean, I remember like one of my really good friends. He wasn't kind of like, he was good. He was actually good. He wasn't like an elite fighter, but he was like a fighter. And I remember one day, and he was a close friend of mine. We were sparring in class, and it was legal to like grab someone in the back of the neck and like knee them in the face as hard as you could. That was like legal without knee pads.
Right. Just a knee to the face.
And I kneed him real hard, but he kind of blocked it. And I think he had like a false tooth. I forgot what it was, but it had fallen out or whatever. I forgot the details, but I remember we were like, an hour later, like showered and having a beer across the street. This is in New York City. And we were just having a good time, but I just like kneed him in the face. It was just like part of like trying to choke your friend in jiu-jitsu. So it was, that's
what we do.
And I'll tell you this, I used to compete at 174 pounds and the weigh-in was that morning. It wasn't like cutting weight. And it was like, you have to kind of walk around that weight for a while. I mean, now I'm 210 pounds.
Right.
I'm the same height. So I used to fight at 174. So I remember I was real concerned about my weight as fights got close. And no joke, and I know it's just water weight, but just to give an example, on the weekends we'd have these insane 2-hour trainings, and I'd weigh myself in the locker room before, and I'd weigh myself after, and I would lose 11 pounds.
Wow.
In an hour and a half or 2 hours. Now, of course, it was all water weight. Of course, it was back on.
Still.
But I would just do it before and after, and you'd lose 8 to 11 pounds in a workout.
Unbelievable.
So we weren't, I wasn't sitting in a sauna. I was training, fighting.
You were active.
So it was some pretty, Kyokushin's no joke. And there's a video, man, I don't know how this works when you post your thing, if you can post like links, but I'll give whatever. I wish I knew the title. It's called I think it's called old school hardcore Kyokushin training with Shigeru Yama, something like that. I could find it.
Yeah.
And it's, it's like a 5-minute clip of my teacher teaching a class in the 1970s.
I'll put it up on bishopchronicles.com. If you click on podcast, I'll put it inside the description.
Okay, and that one, by the way, that was just a regular old class. That wasn't even
like,
you'll see that
class,
right? You'll see that class and be like, that's barbaric. And I'm like, I was in a special fighters closed door class,
and we did other stuff.
Right. So,
no, man, that's really dope, man. Now, something else we got to talk about. Actually,
I'm sorry. Can I just? Want to tell one thing I learned from my teacher. I don't know if it's a Japanese thing or Kyoto. I don't know what it was, but the word excuse didn't exist. Like you could not make an excuse. Like it was just worthless. Like there was no discussion. Like so. That, 2 things that come to my mind, just to give you the how things were rolling back then. So one day I was training. I was a brown belt. I wasn't a black belt. Yeah, I was a brown belt, but I was trained like an animal back then. And I was fighting this super tough guy, and he threw a really hard kick, and he broke my rib. One of my lower left ribs was broken. And I was just so into training that I was like, I'll just go the next day, but I just won't spar. I'll just do everything but spar.
Right.
And I go to my teacher and I said to him, hey, I'm here. I broke my rib yesterday, but my left rib is broken. So I'm just going to do the class, but I'm not going to spar. And he looked at me like I was nuts. And he goes, no, you're fighting. You just stand right foot front. Like fight with you. Yeah.
So
guard your
ribs. Yeah.
And the kind of fighting, like people were gunning for
kicking for that rib thing.
Kicking, hook punches, and bare-fisted, knees,
elbows, whatever.
Full blast. It was full contact, full power sparring. Everyone's trying to knock each other out every class. So that was one thing. Another thing, I never forgot this, so I'm in this class. It was a closed-door class, just the elite fighting team. I was a middleweight. I was fighting one of the heavyweights, this guy, Brian Savage, one of the best. I mean, this guy was he was like 6'3", 230, and I was like 6'2". I was fighting at 174, but I was probably walking around like 182.
Right.
So it's probably 182 that day.
Right.
And he somehow, he threw, I don't remember how it happened, but he threw like an uppercut or something, and he just caught me in the chin, And I actually bit my tongue and a little, I mean, my tongue is all grown back and fine now, but a little tiny piece of my tongue, like kind of like got cut off or whatever. I remember I went down to my hands and knees and there was just blood pouring out of my mouth. And I think a little piece of my tongue came out, tiny,
Right.
And I'll never forget this. I remember having this relief thinking like, this is great. I actually, for the first time around my teacher, I'm going to have a legitimate excuse. Like, he'd be like, hey, Pete,
chill out.
Go to the locker room, clean your mouth, take a shower, watch the rest of the training, and like take a day off and come back. Like I was just so I was on my hands and knees, but then I rolled to my back, and the blood was dripping down my face. And Brian was standing over me. He felt bad. We were friends. And my teacher comes down. Never forget this. He had real broken English. He looks down at me and he goes, "You're fine. Get up, fight." And just him saying that, I got all my energy back in my body and I was up just fighting with like the blood running, That's
deep.
So that's how it was. There was no excuses there. The only legitimate excuse he would accept is that you were dead. Period.
Yeah,
so
barring death.
It helped me a lot in my life. Like excuses are just, whatever.
Just go. Yeah. Now, the other thing we got to talk about, like obviously, anytime you hear my voice, that you're listening to one of the coldest hip hop scholars walking North American soil. This. It's part of why you tune in. This is why we appreciate each other. You see the W in the sky. You know what I'm talking about? However, like Dr. Pete is one of the coldest hip hop historians I've ever come across. Like, I don't care who you know. I don't care if you're at Harvard, if you're at Cornell right now. I don't care if you're at Stanford, bruh, UCLA, bruh. Like, Dr. Peter Goldman is one of these dudes that really knows his hip hop shit. Old school, real shit. So, in order to understand old school hip hop in New York, like there's so much that I learned from Dr. Pete. So Pete, we're gonna have a really kind of like this discussion may feel or actually be fragmented, but like, tell me some of your earliest memories of hip hop.
So I'll say a couple of things. So, just growing up in Brooklyn, I was never like trying to be like Eminem or whatever. I was never like that. But just growing up in Brooklyn, when hip hop was being born, I'd say from 78 to 89 are years I know very well. Like 78 to 89, I know my hip hop pretty inside and out. And, like to me, the late 80s, like Chuck D at that point, KRS-One at that point, EPMD at that point, even Run DMC at that point, late 80s hip hop, like 88, 89 to me is like the mecca of hip hop.
It's the sweet spot of the whole thing, man.
And I would say I know it well. Now there was a record store. It's called a record store then. I don't even call it record stores anymore.
No, right.
It was called The Wiz, and it was the chain of record stores in New York City, and one was in downtown Brooklyn, which was like a block from my school. And I used to go.
And what school did you go to?
It was called Brooklyn Friends, because it was actually a Quaker school, like the Friends Society. You know? So I went to that school, and right by Brooklyn Friends, which was in a pretty treacherous neighborhood, but I would walk after school to the Fulton Mall. It's called the Fulton Mall. And they had The Wiz, one of the Wizzes there, and they have these singles, like these hip hop singles. But we had 3 great radio stations in New York. We had WBLS, which is 107.5. 98.7 KISS, and then 92.3, which was KTU. They had like Mr. Magic, Marley Marl, all these great DJs. So you kind of like just got educated on hip hop, just turning the radio on, quite frankly. And then I would go to The Wiz. And I remember they used to cost $3.99 with tax, $4.32. And you come there, with your $4.32, and I just had this humongous collection of like very great hip hop at the time. And I actually, Adisa, I hope I don't embarrass them on I don't think I will. I would, but Adisa's like, Pete, I know you grew up in Brooklyn. Like, there's actually this one term I heard a lot that I'm just not sure what it means. What does fest mean? He asked me, what is fest? Because it is a New York thing. And I actually told him fest means to like, fest is kind of like to not come through. Like, it's like, hey, my friend was supposed to meet me on this corner at this time and pay me the $5 he owed me, but he didn't show up, Yeah. So the thing I told Adisa is fest was not really a hip hop term. It was a Brooklyn term. Like, There were like white Italian guys who hated
Right.
hip hop who said
Right,
that.
said
Like,
fest, right.
Fest was just how we spoke in New York City. It wasn't like a hip hop thing at
Right.
all, but hip hop.
Once rappers started using
exactly,
it. Right.
exactly. So
Yeah, so he laces me on old school terminology and records and stuff too.
Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde,
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Fast Life, great song.
Fast Life, exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like so, man, like you probably don't even know who Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is.
CD3, Get Tough, 1984.
He's in his zone right now. You can see his eyes. He's reading old school labels right now. So you know what I never asked you, dude? What was the first rap show that you went to? What was the first rap show or concert that you went to? For me, the first rap show, if I remember correctly, was probably, I went to go see the Egyptian Lover and Uncle Jam scratch behind Star Records, which I think was in like San Carlos or something. I'm tripping out. It was in Peninsula. But like I had the first photos that I knew of the Egyptian Lover, and I had the only photo of Uncle Jam. He was just a dude. He was just like a legend, you know what I mean? But like the first concert I went to was the Fresh Fest,
Put it this
at the
way.
Oakland Coliseum. What do you remember about the shows you went to?
So first, let me just start by saying I remember in 1984 when the Beastie Boys were still a punk band and just kind of getting into hip hop. They made Cookie Puss, which was like a joke record, and they were selling it like on my corner.
Right.
Because like MCA went to my school with me.
Right.
Ad Rock hung out of my neighborhood all the time. And Mike D went to St. Anne's, which was 3 blocks from my house.
Right.
So the Beastie Boys are like
Around you.
out of my neighborhood in Brooklyn. And by the way, I always, laugh at this, but a humongous percent of Beastie Boy lyrics are about my neighborhood. So everyone around the world is like singing along to these lyrics, and there's no freaking way they could know what these guys are talking about because they're making these like
because they're not from the
specific
area.
references,
Right.
Like
Give me an example.
Well, here's one. So we have a street fair in my neighborhood. It's called the Atlantic Antic.
Yeah.
I remember, in fact, just a side note, this is your listeners won't care and you won't either, but when I was about 3, I went to the Atlantic Antic, and my dad always tells me that like, I guess they put me in some ride because it's kind of like amusement. They kind of set up an amusement park, and they have like, food. And I guess like they didn't strap me in, and like I was holding on to the bar and the thing was going up and down, and I was like, my feet, but my dad was at the bottom like, oh shit, my son's about to like
fly off.
But I was, according to my dad, laughing and happy as can be. So that was my Atlantic Antic first story, but I went every year, high school. Everyone goes to the Atlantic Antic, but it's only like a 4-block fair.
Right.
And I think it's like the last Sunday in September every
Right.
year. So you'd have to be from my neighborhood in Brooklyn to even understand the Atlantic Antic exists. It's not like it's not like the Macy's Day Parade, on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. It's like this little fair that just my neighborhood goes to. And MCA says on one of the lines, I'm out chilling out at the Atlantic Antic, et cetera,
That's right.
et cetera.
That's right.
Because my rhymes are damn frantic. But
That's right.
So then, even like MC has another line which starts off fresh dressed because I shop at Modell's. Now Modell's is like this chain of like sporting goods stores in Brooklyn where you wouldn't really go for clothing. You go to buy like a football,
Right.
But I spent my whole childhood going to Modell's to buy like my hockey equipment.
Right.
But you could get like a starter jacket, So MCA is saying like, I buy like my sweatsuits at Modell's. Yeah. But I'm sure people are in like Europe, they're singing along about Modell's. They don't know what the hell Modell's is.
No one knows.
Okay. And then Albee Square Mall, which is MCA mentions also,
Right.
which is where the Wiz was by my high
Right.
school. So there are many, 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 and come on. Ad Rock says, I have the most style from below 14th Street. Now, if you're not from New York, you don't even understand. What does that mean? Why would he say, I have the most style from below 14th Street? I know what that means. I'm a New Yorker. No one else does.
Right.
Unless they're from New York or whatever. Or Mike D says, your rhymes are fake like a Canal Street watch. Now, I know what that means. No one else does unless you're,
right.
Well, because Canal Street is where they have all the fake watches in New York.
That's the hustler.
So it's like,
you
but like, I'm sure someone's in like Montana, like, yeah, your rhymes are fake like a Canal Street watch. It's like, so the Beastie Boys, whatever. But getting back to it. So I remember they were selling their records, Yeah. And then my first concert I went to was actually a Beastie Boy concert in 1986, I think. I was already in college. I was in Boston, but they came up to Massachusetts. And I went, Public Enemy opened for them.
Crazy.
And another memorable one, without going through all the hip hop shows that I've attended, but I've always been a huge EPMD fan. Like, I always thought they were fairly underrated. Maybe not. Maybe
Me
they're,
too, man.
Maybe they're more highly rated than I thought. I'm not like up on what people think.
Yeah.
But I think EPMD, I just love those guys. And of course, I couldn't miss them live. And I saw them after they were kind of like not. They kind of like had broken up and got back together. They weren't too famous. I saw them at a small venue in Manhattan.
Yeah.
With Kenny Toby, who you...
Yeah, Kenny Toby.
Sweetie G's brother, Kenny Toby, one of my best friends.
Sweetie
growing
G.
up. And those are some of the memorable ones. I saw the Beastie Boys again when they came to Atlanta when I was in chiropractic school.
So like, yeah, man, yeah. My first show was the Fresh Fest. Trying to think if I had anything after that. I mean there were there were different tours like Raising Hell, you know what I mean, and a couple.
Now
others.
Adisa and I have had, since he mentions Raising Hell, we've had like a long running. I mean, argument's too strong a word.
Yeah.
We respect each
Massive
other.
debates.
We don't really argue.
Yeah,
like where it's like I think you're wrong, because we see each other's point, but we just enjoy arguing. But in the Run DMC thing, he always has liked DMC better, and I've always thought Run is immensely more talented. We don't have to go into that. I'm just mentioning it for the listeners.
Listeners, what do you say?
Put it in the comments. Come on.
All right.
Anyone who
Run
knows
or DMC?
Please.
Who was better? Who was better?
Dude, just listen to Sucker MC. I mean, Run made that song, and DMC came on at the end, and it was like,
First of all, DMC has way crazy lines from even the first one, Blood, from the first
How about
album.
this? Admit he came on as time went on. Come on. He had a rough start.
He did not have a rough start.
Really? Is Sucker MC, he was good?
No, dude, what, hold on, what song was that? I'm DMC in the place to be. I went to say, dude,
Okay.
come on, man. You cannot hate on that verse. Are you hating on that verse?
No, I love it.
know.
I love it. I just think it's, actually, as you say it, I do have more fond memories of it. All right, fair enough.
Wow. DMC, bruh. He was hard.
I always liked him.
And then another thing that, Pete and I have massive debates about this, and this is where I really need everybody to check in, please, on the IG at Real Hip Hop Chess. I'm gonna post a picture of Mo D and I'm gonna post a picture of LL Cool J. All right. And I want you to comment who was better. All right. Like, I always felt like Mo D got destroyed by Jack the Ripper and never really recovered. It was kind of like it demolished his soul, and like after that, he just kept rapping.
I think Let's Go, which was actually the rebuttal to Jack the Ripper, was fantastic.
Let's Go was so mediocre, dude. Okay. It was not dope. And so just to be clear, not only am I saying that Cool J had better lyrics, I'm very specific about this idea that just the time period of hip hop, that Rick Rubin's production was starting to be beast mode, and that a lot of what hurt Mo D wasn't so much the lyricism, but that his beats just never they weren't speaking to this up and coming group of rappers at the time.
Mo D had horrible production, and I do love LL, and I think Jack the Ripper is one of the best hip hop songs ever, as is Rock the Bells. But it's kind of like, let me give you a tennis analogy. John McEnroe, also one of my idols growing up, one of the greatest tennis players ever. Yeah. If you were teaching a kid to play tennis, you wouldn't say, hey, do a forehand like John McEnroe, because he had like a very odd style, but he just could make it work. Right. I think LL has like a strange voice, and I think he sounds like he's yelling and screaming when he's rapping, which I don't think is a good thing to do, but somehow he pulls it off. I got to give him credit. I feel like yelling was part of that era. Like when I think about, I guess Run did yell. Run yelled a lot, and you liked Run. You just said, right? All right. See, that's what happens when you debate with Adisa. You'll go down in flames. and then, but I think that Cool J definitely was a yeller. I think that was a trademark of the era. But he did stay with it because he was kind of a pioneer of it. I don't think he never really left it. You know what I mean? But I also thought that Cool J wrecked Mo D again into The Break of Dawn, which is an underrated song. You always bring that up, and it's not like I feel bad about it, but I don't think it's that amazing. And I like that in Modi's rebuttal. He played a bar from To the Break of Dawn, and he's like, "Time's up, punk."
He did. Yeah, he did. That was But I also think that when people look at that battle, that they don't think about the lyricism of Mo D for real, and they don't think about the totality of what Mo D brought to hip hop as a body of art. You know what I mean? I do feel like he's underrated and he doesn't get the respect that he deserves in that. And I think that people look at it like, oh, well, you know, if you believe that Cool J won, it kind of, those fans tend to push the body of his contributions to the left, which I think is not cool. Because you turned me on to that documentary on YouTube. Tell me about it really quick. Tell the listeners about that YouTube.
It's a documentary on Kool Moe Dee on YouTube. And just a lot of cool things about him. Like, if I remember correctly, like he never smoked or drank. He was like in an atmosphere where it happened a lot, but he really respected himself and his body, which is, trust me, in New York at that time, in that neighborhood.
That was almost unheard of.
It was unheard of. He had a rough home life, but he never complained about it. I liked him before it, and I respected him more after it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no doubt. Any other final hip hop tidbits before we close this out?
Final tidbits.
Thoughts, reflections, hip hop reflections from Dr. Pete.
No, I think we covered all the high points.
Yeah. So now let's bring it back to healing, man. Let's bring it back to healing. When someone comes to see you, what should they expect to experience when they come to see you?
Well, first of all, you know, it's funny. You asked me, let's repeat that because I wanna be specific here. You said what should someone expect to experience? Results. They should see, to me, I think a lot of healers, they get real like into their own, like what they do, and they're almost like, they almost put that ahead of the patient's healing. So, see, to me, I don't care if it's an acupuncture needle, a homeopathic dose under your tongue, a chiropractic adjustment, like moving your atlas into place,
right.
A massage, an energy treatment from across the room. Man, that's just details. Results, you can expect results. So someone's like, they've had migraine headaches for 10 years and nothing they tried works. Well, they can expect to have a head that feels perfect all the time. Someone who can't eat dairy or gluten because they feel horrible, they should expect to eat pizza and feel great in a month. So they should just expect results.
Right. No, that's fantastic. So remember, guys, go to sfgoldman.com to learn more about Dr. Pete and learn more about the zone technique. And, you know, if you're already a healer and you want to add to, you know, what you're learning, I also suggest that you reach out. Go ahead and share.
And it's, Adisa, you know, must have, you know, read my mind because I wanted to say, if you are a chiropractor, if you are a acupuncturist, naturopath, doctor of any type, healer of any type, check out zonetechnique.com, zonetechnique.com. And at zonetechnique.com, you will learn about my healing school. It's an online healing school. I have students all over the world. People are getting miraculous results with their patients. And I will teach you how to do what I do. And my school's 100% money back guarantee. So if you don't love it, it's free. So if you join my school, only one of two things happens. You either say, hey, Pete, that's the best decision I ever made in my healing career, or you get your money back and it's free. So zonetechnique.com, please join us. I can help you. I will help you.
Now, you know what, man? Like, you have been able to train with so many different people throughout the years in jiu-jitsu. For all the jiu-jitsu heads out there, give me a cool Higan Machado memory.
Well, Higan Machado is actually one of my very close friends, and I've, you know, trained with him a number of times. The memory about Higan is just like, he's the kind of guy that you train with and he shows you something and you're like tapping everyone with it the next day. Like, he's not like a theoretical guy who's like, hey, let me give you this idea to make your game better. It's like, do this choke and it's hard to stop. And then you're like, man, I'm choking people I couldn't choke before. Like, with this choke, like Higan is like Mr. Practicality.
Right.
His stuff just works, period.
Right. Now, I know that you've done some work on Rickson. Did you ever get to train with him at all? Like, have you guys?
Rickson is a guy who is someone I've worked on many times. In fact, he brought Crone to me. Like, he's like, hey, so what happened was I was in LA one weekend. You know, Rickson knew I was there and I had worked on Rickson many times. And that's when Crone was in the Metamoros against Aoki. And Crone had a couple things he needed addressed before that Sunday match. So Hickson's like, can you see Crone? I said, I'll tell you what, I'm staying in Beverly Hills. You bring Crone Friday, Saturday, and Sunday morning before. Hickson brought him. I worked on them both.
Right.
I worked on Crone Friday, Saturday, and Sunday morning. They came early, and then he went and he beat Aoki, and I was there. So I have never done jiu-jitsu with Crone or Hickson, but they're both friends and they're both people who I work on. Right. And I don't want to bother Hickson, so I don't exactly have like plans to train with Hickson. Yeah. But I'm sure if I asked Crone to like show me some stuff, he would do it anytime, because Crone and I are pretty tight. Yeah. And Crone lives in LA, but anytime he comes to the Bay Area, like I think I'm his first text, and he's make sure that he sees me. And I've just never asked him, but I've gone to LA several times in the last few years and needed some space to do some stuff I was doing, and Crone just donated his academy to me. So Crone essentially will, give me the keys to his academy to do what I need to do. So, Crone and I are tight, and
you know what is
I'm sure I'll roll with him one day and get demolished.
Right. There's one of my students, Tarek, sent me a video. It's a short documentary on Crone, like preparing for like a tournament. I don't know if you've seen it. It's on YouTube. It's cool. I liked it. I liked it. I
Am I in that?
About him.
No, because I'm pretty sure. Oh, the reason I asked, is because there was one time they were doing a documentary on Crone, preparing for something, and it just happened to be he was here, and I was working on him, and they filmed it. So
okay,
I just thought I might have gotten that.
Everything in this one was all LA, so it's like him going around LA. But no, I mean, like it's really cool, man. Like if you haven't looked that up, and if you don't know Crone, Kron, go look him up on YouTube. It's a cool thing, and I think it's important that again, always bringing this back to health. That when you do jujitsu, kyokushin, any art, man, like you should be eating and living better. Like your martial art should help open the doors for you to be just eating better, drinking better, more aware, and I think like as much as I love Brazilian jiu-jitsu for just the fun of it and whatever, like it helped remind me about my duty to take care of my body, man. A lot of the stuff I do in yoga and meditation, all that stuff was stuff that branched out from, and even going to Dr. Pete was stuff that branched me out from, just training martial arts for the sake of martial arts itself, So thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate you. If people want to get a hold of you, give them the rundown one more time.
If you're interested in healing and you want to come to my office in San Francisco, you can just book your appointment online at SF, like San Francisco, Goldman, like my last name, .com, sfgoldman.com. If you're any kind of doctor or healer who wants to learn from me, which I highly recommend, zonetechnique.com, zonetechnique.com. And I'll see you in one of those places.
Thank you for being on Bishop Chronicles.
Thank you.
All right, y'all, you know what it is. West Side all day. PharcydeTV.com, CydeLife Radio, Bishop Chronicles, Adisa Banjoko, you know what I'm saying? It may not be the best thing, but it's always going to be the West thing. And we out.
Teacher, what style is that? Whole thing.
You are now listening to the Bishop Chronicles. Bishop Chronicles.
You're lots to learn. Right with me. It's my own secret technique.